So, Lydia, tell us who you are, what is your academic background to inspire those young girls in the village, and why you decided to do a PhD in this area and in German. So, two questions, up to you.
Okay. Okay. My name is Lydia Radoli. I will first identify myself as Kenyan. Secondly, I'm a journalist, and then thirdly, I'm a PhD scholar here in Brandenburg University of Technology, Cottbus. I'm writing my thesis on narratives of migration and development as discourses in transnational digital migrant media. When I say transnational, I mean the connection of here and there, the diaspora and the homeland. When I say digital migrant media, I mean media that is for migrants by migrants, like diasporic media. And in my research, I used 2 case studies of diasporic media in Germany and the United Kingdom. Here in Germany, I chose Mkenya Ujerumani. So most of you are familiar with Mkenya Ujerumani as a diasporic media that produces a lot of information on migration and development. And then in the UK, I chose UKN TV. It's also run by a Kenyan entrepreneur. It's based in London. Why I chose these 2 diasporic media as my case studies is because I had analyzed them over time, and I found that they have very incisive stories on migration and development, which are the core themes of my thesis. And so why I chose Germany, to answer your question, is I have had an experience of having studied in Europe. My master's was on the scholarship of Erasmus Mundus, and here I studied in So I did my master's was in human rights practice under Erasmus Mundus program, and I studied in Sweden, Gothenburg University, and then we went to UK, Roehampton University, and then I was in Norway, Tromsø University. And this experience gave me the diasporic or migrant experience of moving from one country to another, being an African, being a scholar, and being a migrant. So during my master's courses, one of the courses was on diasporas, the diasporas and their networks. And being an African, I was so much interested in finding out how much place Africans have in the development agenda of their own country. In the UK, I was placed as an intern at the Voluntary Services Overseas at the Diaspora Volunteering Desk. So there, I got the idea of how can I turn this into a further research to find out the activities of these diasporic groups and how they inform the development agenda in the migration-sending countries like Kenya, for example. And so a little bit about how I tied that to my professionalism and my background. I mentioned that I'm a journalist, but yes, I went to the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication in Kenya. And from there, I went to the University of Nairobi to study communication sociology. But of course, at KMC, I studied journalism. And so from earlier on, I knew that my career would be best in communications and the media. It's really nice for people, for young people outside there, that earlier in your career, you already know what you really want to do. And one thing, this is a secret I want to share with you, is choose something that you're really passionate about. I'm very passionate about the media, and actually people who know me is like when they see me, there's something connected to communication, even the way I talk, the way I present myself. I think that is very important because I'm very passionate about issues to do with the media and journalism as a profession. So I worked also after my study in KMC, then I got a job training as a mass communication lecturer in Nairobi at the Air Travel and Related Studies Center. Later on, we established our own college. That is some years ago. Called Global Institute of Management. So that was just after KMC, and then going to air travel, teaching for between 1 to 3 years, and at the 3rd year, with the other 4 colleagues who are all male, we joined hands together and started our own private institution. Why? Because we thought that there is a niche for young people to start becoming entrepreneurs, and it really motivated us to start that. But because my passion of the media led me again to work in the radio So I started as an editor in Radio Waumini, and then I went on to get a job in Rwanda, where I also worked as a senior broadcast journalist. And from Rwanda, when I was in Rwanda, then I got my scholarship to do the master's. And I had already, from KMC, I had already started, I already registered at the University of Nairobi. And what was happening is that while I was a mass communication lecturer, during the day, in the evening, I was a student at the University of Nairobi. And so I would leave classes, I would leave my classes at 5. I say bye to my students and run to my own classes at the University of Nairobi. And interesting is like the times we used to have exams, and this was a very pressure period. And I have some colleague whom we always joke, a journalist also, and we sit in the halls of the university until 10 at night or 11 at night, just revising the papers, because you have to be at work in the morning. You are an employee of somebody in the morning, and you are a student in the evening. And we saw at that point, so many Kenyans dedicated to educating themselves and furthering their education. And that also motivated me, because I saw people working, getting these salaries, but being able to pay for their higher education.
I believe in networking. I believe you cannot achieve much when you're alone. And I know of a very good network. It's called the African Good Governance Network. You're a fellow. So tell us about the initiative. What is it all about? How can we join, and what activities do they do?
So I'm a fellow, a life fellow, I would say, of the African Good Governance Network, which is a network of African scholars who have studied or are still studying in Germany and committed to the issues of good governance. And this takes us back home, because when you think about Africa, we have institutional structural problems with issues to do with corruption, lack of rule of law, lack of leadership, lack of the quality of services within the institutions. We have disparities, economic, social, and political disparities. Look at the way we handle our elections. So as scholars of the good governance, as fellows of the African Good Governance Network, we aim to inspire attributes of good governance in institutions that we work with, within our networks, and with other Africans that we meet with. And we inspire the narrative that, yes, we have been painted as a continent that does not follow the rule of law, for example, that a continent that is deviled with the issues to do with corruption. But here we are, we can see what good governance can do to institutions. And so that's what the network is all. It is a network that was a project of the DAD, a project. And so this year, the DAD project of funding came to an end, because it had supported KGCEN for 12 years. And so as we speak now, the African Good Governance Networks now become an alumni of DAD. So for us guys who are fellows in the network, life fellows in the network, then we are still ambassadors of good governance, but we are now an alumni, we become alumni of DAD. So what we are inspiring to do as a network is also to get our structures together. And we have already opened chapters in Africa. We have the East African chapter, the West African chapter, the South African chapter. And what these chapters do is now to take the talk to the ground. Like, if you are talking about good governance, can you go back to institutions back at home and implement these issues of good governance that you're talking about? So from last year, we started deliberate efforts to establish these chapters. And being the member of the EXCO, that is the executive committee, where I'm the vice president of the KGCEN, we hope that we continue to inspire young, not just young people, but the nation, the African continent. We should inspire ourselves by trusting and believing that this is possible, that if we say no to corruption, zero tolerance to corruption we can do. If countries like Rwanda, for example, has given us a go-ahead and they're saying zero tolerance to corruption, and if somebody, regardless of which position you hold in the society, if you're engaged in corrupt deals, then you're prosecuted. Then we should be able to follow such examples. It's not that the whole of the continent we are rotten. I believe that there are significant examples in each significant country, because we should understand that each country is unique. So we cannot generalize, but there are examples in each country that we can borrow and use them to shape our institutions, to structure the way we do things.
What you're saying is very true, especially with people in the diaspora. The way we see things functioning here is the same way we should go back home and try small, as you said, small by small, implementing what we know of systems that are working, not going there now changing the whole thing. Is mimi niko Kenya where things don't function. Let's go and bring the change. Let's go be the change and show people I have seen systems working, and these ones can also work in the institution. So that's a very good message you have actually preached tonight in the middle of our discussion. So our next agenda is your baby. You are the founder of the Diaspora Radio, an amazing platform. I love what you're doing, reaching out to people to share their stories, and amazing. Tell us about the network. Tell us about the radio.
Then I still link to what I said earlier. It's to do with passion. And I got the idea of Diaspora Radio from gaps that I found in my research study, and analyzing my data on what the diasporic media in Europe owned by Kenyans, so meant for Kenyans. What it reproduces, yes, narratives on migration and development, but at the same time, when we are doing this, sometimes we replicate what is produced in the mainstream media. And the narrative has always been that Africans, we don't have voices of representation, or we are represented in the negative, stereotypical way within the mainstream media. So I thought that we could come up with a gap to tell our own narratives. And I always, when I talk about Diaspora Radio, I use these two quotes, examples from these two women. The first one is a post-colonial author or theorist. She's called Gayatri Spivak. And Spivak says that, asks the question, can the subaltern speak? And when she asks this question, she is actually challenging the subaltern, who are the marginalized, the poor people, the people who are neglected within a social setup or a society. And in this context, I am seeing diasporas, I'm seeing migrants, and I'm saying, okay, these people, we don't get to hear about them so much in the mainstream media unless it's something negative, or they have come illegally in the rickety boats, and so they are swimming over the oceans, and we have to close the borders, and we have to close the walls and bring up walls. These are the narratives that we hear. President Donald Trump in 2016 says they come to the US from shithole countries. Excuse my terminology, but yes, that what means is that you're already centering on stereotypes that this mainstream media or this public sphere has about the people within the marginalized community, which people calls the subaltern. So can they speak? And yes, I say yes, they can speak on Diaspora Radio. And what Diaspora Radio then does is, because it gives space for these people who are not heard a lot, but they have narratives. Ordinary people like you, Carol, you're doing extraordinary things. And we get into a conversation with Carol, and you're like, what does Carol do? And this is what Carol does. And you get to connect to other people. Somebody might be sitting somewhere, has this idea, but they don't know how to start. But when they listen to your programs and follow your shows on Facebook, on your website, then they know, oh, I'm inspired, I can also do this. So yes, the subaltern can speak on Diaspora Radio. And the other thing is Ngozi Adichie-Chimamanda, one of my best authors, African, Nigerian, and a woman, of course, and she says that there is the danger of a single story. And that really is thought-provoking, because when we are used to people representing us as a community in one linear way or within this straitjacket, then we cannot be able to explore other aspects and attributes that we have about us, other talents that we have, other characteristics that embody us as African people. So this space that I created on Diaspora Radio was to merge, to create this platform where Africans, not just Kenyans, but Africans can begin to tell their own stories in their simplest ways. And we have, so it's a platform that runs online, radio online, and it is supported by servers from the US, from Zeno Media Producers. And so from Zeno, you can stream online. So if you click, you go on our website, we have a website which is www.diasporaradio.org. So when you go there, the first thing you see is click live. And when you go to live, you can listen to our programming. And some of our programming, which Caro has also been in one of these, is I like to talk about these programs because I just sat down with my colleague Ray Mutai, who was also a producer, a radio producer that we worked with together in Waumini. And Ray so just a post the first day I put online, I was like Diaspora Radio, just like a thought-provoking post. And then he was really interested in this idea. So we sat one evening over Skype, and we were creating ideas of what programming we are going to come up with. And so we have on Monday, which we have Jukwaa East Africa. We thought that issues to do with East African community have not been demystified. And so we need to talk more about what the East African community is, the opportunities they are in, how can a common mwananchi, a common citizen get value out of the East African community. On Tuesday, we have the Startup Hub, or the entrepreneur platform, where we talk about starting businesses. We talk about people who have established businesses, how have they done it, and it's all conversation, simple, easy way, relaxed, not so serious journalistic stuff with questions that are meant to intimidate you, but it's just like the way you go home in an African community and you are like karibu nyumbani. So Diaspora Radio is tunakukaribisha jukwani, and we have a conversation, maybe over a cup of tea if that is possible, but then we do it over the social media. And so on Wednesday we have Voices from Distant Souls, and this is touched to the idea of Diaspora Radio itself. Like people, our people in the diaspora, they have these triumphs, they have these struggles that you never get to learn about. When we started, we were talking about au pairs. And these are the voices that we never hear in the mainstream media. So on the Voices from Distant Souls, we take advantage of the distance between home and abroad, and what struggles, what aspirations that these people have gone through. Can they share these stories? And through Diaspora Radio, then people who are home can listen to these struggles, so that when you want to send your children to come here and tell them stay, make sure you get a muzungu and don't come back. You need to know which struggles have they gone through to make them even stay. And even when they are staying, are they comfortable? Are they developing themselves? Are they having that urge that if I was at home, if I got a support from my family who do not expect me to be sending money, yet I'm really struggling as it is. So these are the narratives that we want to bring out on this platform. Then on Thursday is Tough Talk Africa, and being with the issues of Africa at heart, we need to start asking ourselves questions as Africans. Questions with the leadership, questions with the institutions, the education system. What is wrong? What can be done? I know we can talk about it, but by talking, then we start to find solutions to these issues. There is Passport on Friday, where now we bring our diasporic professionals, experts, people who have done it, and we share these experiences, and it's very interesting. We've had Joy from Awe talking about her marketing. We've talked to like one Kenyan gentleman who started transporting technical used spare parts, so used technical facilities to polytechnics back in Kenya. And I must start by these stories because this is how we share ideas. This is how we exchange knowledges. And of course, I can't forget, there's also time to laugh. We laugh a lot on Diaspora Radio. You should see my content creators. All the time, they always have something to laugh about. And on Connections, we even do salam, kutuma salam nyumbani. Used to listen to the KBC shows, and here we have people speaking in their mother tongue. It's just fascinating to see when you give them this aspect that, unaweza kutuma salamu, and now tumia lugha ambayo unataka, and everyone goes, oh my goodness. It is just like you can, in their mind, they are already seeing this person who is very far away, and they have missed them. And when they are doing this, they are connecting, so we call it connections. So Diaspora Radio is still at that point. We started running in March, and this year we have so much more that we have planned that we'll be sharing with you on the platform. You can actually go and visit our page on Facebook, visit our website, and listen to us streaming live. And of course, there's very, very fantastic African music that you can always stream online on Diaspora Radio. Yeah.
So you are into the area of migration and development, and also the diaspora. And the diaspora plays a big role in the community, not just sending money home, as we always do, but what is your opinion? How can we contribute towards empowering communities within the diaspora here or back home?
It's important that you started with how can we empower communities within the diaspora first, and before we go home. And one thing I found out in my research, I'm now sharing my findings. But one thing I found out in my research is, for example, here in Germany, the diasporas in Germany are not so networked as our counterparts in the US and in the UK. And why this is so is because it goes with the culture that we have created as diasporas here. And even before I started going deep into my data collection, I had realized that in Germany, for example, we come here, but when you meet somebody from Kenya, we're like, okay, meaning Kenya, and then like, how ulikujaje? And once they know how you came here, we are already compartmentalizing, the visions they are created. Huyu ni msomi, so I cannot relate with them. Huyu alikuja kama opea, mimi ni msomi, siwezi relate na huyu. And so it creates a lot of, unwanted disintegration. But my feeling is that when we are here as Kenyans, then we need to stay together or united as Kenyans. When we start these networks, then we also need to put the agenda of working together or working together with a common purpose. And so when we work together as a common purpose, when we network abroad, then it gives us that ability to be able to even network further at home. And diaspora, I believe that diasporas are agents of change, social change or development per se. And they have done this. We see that through sending remittances, which have scaled high in the last season alone. And so we are not so much focused on, we should not so much be focused on remittances alone, but then look at other social, what we call in literature, social remittances. And social remittances are the knowledge, the skills transfer. I talked about Stephen, who does this training of young people who could not go to university, but they're in between, so they go to polytechnics. And this vocational training is from the skills that he got by working in a German aircraft company. And so for me, social remittance, yes, we need the financial remittances, which is important because they are key in the development sector in Kenya, and they have surpassed other sectors like tourism, for example, and agriculture. So we see remittances as playing a key economic aspect in Kenya, for example, but also be able to take advantage of us being in the diaspora, the exposure that we've gained, scholars, for example, the knowledge systems that we gained in the universities, the structures within the universities, the curriculum within the universities, and going back, for example, with a PhD as a doctor, then you should be able to implement, or rather to share what you learned from your experience in the university to the universities that you're going to teach back at home.
Yeah.
I was talking with a colleague from Moi University in Eldoret. He's a doctor in Moi University Eldoret, and so I was asking him what happens because the systems at home in the higher institutions of learning, they seem to be failing the students. What we seem to be doing is producing students that cannot be really practical on the job market. And why? It's because we do not give a student opportunity to maybe decide or make critical academic analysis of themselves and research. And yet we can argue that we may not have the facilities, we may not have the resources to do this. But I want to tell you one thing, and still here in the universities, what you experience in German universities, yes, you have your supervisor, but your project, your research is you. You will determine if you are going to graduate with that PhD. Your supervisor will be there to guide you. So you are in charge of your own studies. You're expected to argue, to critique, and also to really stand for your thoughts and opinion when you're doing your research. And some of these aspects that we have experienced as scholars here in Germany, as a contributor, as a diasporic contributor, then I would think that if I go in the academia, then I should be able to inspire my students that how to become an active, independent academic person, that you can be critical about issues that are happening, not just in the academic field, but also in the political or social setups. The other thing that I've seen that the members of the diaspora community, and this I will key or link it to the Kenya Diaspora Homecoming Convention, which we had an event in Kenya from 19th to 21st of December under the Kenya Diaspora Alliance. And what KDA does is at the end of the year, they bring all the members of the diaspora together in this convention so that they can share experiences and also they can learn and project what to do as members of the diaspora community. And the Kenya Diaspora Homecoming Convention is one of that platform that we go in touch with the issues that are concerned to the diaspora: migration, integration, economic development, sharing of knowledge and skills. This year's theme was youth empowerment and knowledge management. And the aspect that came out of this convention is that we have not invested, or we are not investing enough into our young people, yet we need to know that actually the youth, the members of the youth are saying, don't see us as the leaders of tomorrow, because we are leaders. In Austria, a 31-year-old Austrian man is the head of state. I mean, he's the head of state. And this is because this aspect of having a belief that youth can also do it, and they need support and leadership, coaching from those who are ahead of them. And so leaders who have been the they need to start, modeling the young people to be leaders, not to be leaders of tomorrow, but also to take leadership positions. And this is something that is done within the KDA. We have other branches like the Diaspora Youth Council, which I'm also a leader in the Diaspora Youth Council. And here we sort of give youth the roles to play, responsibilities to play, to inform the focus within the attributes within the diasporic agenda. Yes, and so my opinion is, yes, the members of the diaspora community have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of skills, they have a lot of exposure that they can share with non-migrating others, but they need to work together with the non-migrating others, and also because the people who are not migrating actually know the environment and the cultural context, that what has been happening when the members of the diaspora are not there. So if we form a network of collaboration, then I think we can go a very long way, or attain a lot in terms of development.
I totally agree, and I think during the interview that we did with you, we mentioned on that, and we need to come together and see what we can do. And we do not have to be scholars. I mean, we have people here who are very happy home. They're happy mothers. They stay at home. They take care of their children, and they understand all the systems here. So, for example, if you're a young mother from Kenya, you're coming here, these are the people to talk to. And if you find these people within the diaspora networks, they tell you about the German school systems, the German health insurance, just basically how to fit into the culture. They know all that because they're experts in that area. So you don't have to be a scholar to contribute to the diaspora. All we need is to give each one of us their space and say, look, there's something that anyone can offer into the community. And like we did a video with Joy Awe also about her relaunch in Kenya. And I just felt it is good to give her the support that she needs so that people know that there's such kind of a network. And I said when I started that you should not go to a place alone. You should always go with a network. And I just imagine going out of the country and about 10 networks that can be of value to you. And through working together, then we are able to even to ship these ideas back home and see what we contribute to the communities back home. But as you said, we need to start here and then we go. Nice. Before we end up our discussion, I know there are people out there who are looking up to you as a role model, such a young, beautiful Kenyan who is now finishing her PhD. Ooh. What would you tell those young people? What word would you send out to inspire them?
I use my own life story as an inspiration to so many people, and for me, what has really worked for me is to know what you want first, to know what you want, and to believe that with determination, and you need to put work into it, and focus on what you really want in life, be it in life, in professional, and I'm talking to young people in the universities. I'm talking to young people, students who are finishing high school, who are in high school, primary school kids who are thinking, oh my goodness, will I reach that level? Like for me, when you ask me today, what is your academic juncture, I'll say, imetosha. But of course, being in the academia, you never say imetosha. But I can imagine that kid in the primary school who is like, oh my goodness, such a long way to go. But this long journey is all achievable if you stay focused on your goals and also learn from other people who have been there. And I encourage people who have been there, professionals in the field, please work with our young people. If you are, especially, I have this example that I benefited a lot from my internship. Internships as I was growing progressively in the career at KBC, for example. I interned at KBC, and I had people like Masila Wamoi, Rachel Dengo, Ruth Nesoba. These are journalists who are already there and they're already in the system. But they saw the potential, and they would even not go for an assignment. And like, Lydia, you can do that story. You can do that story better. So please go and get that story. And they're like, oh, you have a very good voice. Please read that script. And like, you made a mistake on that script. Can you repeat that script again and again? And there are these people that were already there that motivated me and gave me the confidence that there is a potential in what you can do. And these are things that can be done from, primary school level to high school, and so that when students come out, they really know what are we need as trainers. We need to identify what are the strong attributes of these students that can really stimulate towards a career path that they really want. And I don't believe in these things where we force our children to take courses that a society, so in the society, are claimed to be the important courses. But I believe in identifying a potential in every student and shaping this potential towards the right path in their careers.
Well, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I'm actually thinking of how we can form an online mentoring program to reach out to many people out there, be it maybe even in our local schools. We can do all these things even from here. The internet has helped a lot of, things. All we need is to have a platform, and we see technically how that possible can be, and I'm sure we can be of great help to, especially to the young people, in helping them find out what they really want to do, because most of them are so confused, they're lost. And we are here, we have somehow made it. You are on top there. And why not?
That's very important,
Anyway, thank you so much, dear, for the nice discussion. I admire your laughter. It's the German say, das Lachen ist ansteckend,
Oh, I have heard that a lot. They would just stop me in the streets and they tell me this thing. I'm like, oh, danke.
So keep the smile, keep the good laughter, keep up the good work. And I wish you all the very best, even as you prepare to defend, and let us know so that we can enjoy and toast with Dr. Radoli.
Yeah.
Wish you a very good week.
And on Diaspora Radio.
Yes. And see you very soon live. Then we can talk more and see what we can do in the diaspora.